there, Sandra here from Createinspain. Thanks for joining me today. Now I have a stencil in front of me and a piece of card underneath, and I'm going to paint on top of my stencil using Pearl Eucalyptus, which is a gouache from Arteza. What I also did was I used that stencil to emboss it by putting it through my embossing machine. So I ran it through the embossing machine first, and you can see you now have dimension and texture and colour all in one go, which is pretty neat. That's not bad at all. But you don't have to stick to using paints to do this technique. Don't know if it shows up too well on camera. It looks okay here, it's subtle. But on this particular one, all I've actually used is a makeup powder, which is Prism. Again, I put it through the embossing machine, and then I just did the coating with a drop of glycerin instead of paint, because you need something for the stuff to stick to, and then I went over it with the makeup powder. Now this is what happens if you don't wait for the powder to dry before you dust it off. This started off quite clearly demarked as green and yellow and a pinky, rosy pinky colour. But I deliberately, although I let it dry for a minute or two, I didn't let it dry thoroughly. And I got my heat gun out, so it's warped because it was only on a paper. And I wiped it off. And so it's not that clean an image. It's okay, but it could be a lot better. Now this one here, I used some, let me see, Aztec Gold. This is Jacquard powder, and it's actually a very, very bright looking gold. I mean, it's a lovely bright colour. And I thought this would do a really nice colour on here. This particular time I used a spray adhesive through the stencil, and then I applied the powder. But it hasn't actually stuck to it that well. It's a very subtle result, which is okay if that's what you're after. But it wasn't what I thought I was going to get. There's not a heavy amount of pigment. I mean, yes, it all shines, but it's not heavily pigmented, or it doesn't appear to be. So I thought that was a little disappointing. So now this again was a Jacquard. This one is Spring Green. And I did this with the glycerin, and then put the powder on top over the stencil and did it. But it's come out kind of patchy. It's more of a verdigris than anything else. It's not consistent. And I thought that was somewhat strange. So then I decided to do a comparison. And I used a different sort of powder on this one, and I actually prefer this. I use these. They're chalk pastels. Got a set of them from Lidl a long time ago. And all I did was I got a craft knife and I just scraped some of the chalk off. And that is literally all I did, just scraped it off over the top. And then used the same brush, like this, to work it in. The other thing that I added was a little bit of this stuff as well to give it a little bit of shimmer. Now it probably doesn't show too well in the camera, but it does have a little bit of shimmer to it. It's a bit overcast here today. I think that is actually a really nice effect. And you can certainly see that you have the embossed effect on both of them, even though that stencil was basically not much thicker than a piece of paper. It's a very, very thin stencil. But it's strange that with the same technique, more colour seems to have adhered with this than it does with the Jacquard one. You would have thought it would have been the other way around, but not. This one I did with a plastic stencil, so you can see probably that it is more embossed or debossed, however you like to call it. And I did this one with the chalks and a bit of prism powder put into it as well. And I can certainly see the shimmer on that. I don't know if you can, but I certainly can. That looks really, really nice. I think that's a great background. Have a play and see what you can come up with using whatever powders you have to hand, or using whatever paints you've got to hand. So I just thought those were interesting, but the fact that I embossed them first and then coloured them just gives them extra dimension, a little bit of extra interest, and it's something just a bit different. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to mention today is iOrnament Pro. This is an iPad app. I already had iOrnament and it came to my attention, I don't know why it came to my attention, but it came to my attention that they had a pro version out. So I thought, oh, I'll have a look. And it's great fun. I believe it was $6.99, so it's pretty cheap. And I think it has family sharing on it as well. Not that's much use to me because I can't see my husband using it. But it's pretty cheap for some pretty good entertainment, especially if you have younger people at home and they need amusing. Have a look at it. It's a great way of using your iPad to draw symmetrical designs of different types, and you can then print things off. You can make it into little videos. You can also make, parabolic shapes out of them, and kaleidoscopes and all sorts of weird and wonderfuls. So yes, I bought it because I thought, yes, I'm definitely going to need this when I'm at home. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that little technique and give it a shot. I think you'll find it's quite relaxing. Thanks for watching. Take care now. Bye bye.